Good morning, I'm Ashley Brown, the middle school counselor here, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about positive communication. I think in this COVID time, in this time that we're living in, we are busier than ever, dealing with more than we've ever dealt with, and I think along with that comes the rush, and we just keep moving, and the communication can sometimes be lost. So we want to focus on some tips for building or rebuilding the positive communication that you have at home with your kids. So, I too am a parent, and I told Brooke that before this, I am not standing up here saying I am perfect at this. As a parent, it is tough. So, obviously, what we thought parenting would look like. But what it really is like, or what it feels like sometimes, might be very stressful and very different. So recognize, I understand, I know, I do this daily. So it's not always pretty, but we want to work to improve every day. So I want you to think about your childhood, because whether we realize it or not, I put that up there, sometimes when I open my mouth, my mother comes out. I always said growing up, I would never do this or never do that. And we're so ingrained with how we were raised that you might not even think about how some patterns come out that you were raised with your parents' habits. So some of those are really great things and some of those are not. So you want to be really aware about how you were raised. What patterns did you like? What patterns did you not like as far as what you want to recreate in your families? You have a choice in that, but if you don't think about it, it just happens. So examine that. Take some time to really think about what was healthy, what wasn't so healthy. Maybe you don't know, and you need to ask somebody. We all need help sometimes. But think about these things and be conscious of it so that we can be intentional with how we parent our children. So this whole thing came from our students. I was sitting with a group of students working on mental health, and they wanted to give input on how to support other students with their mental health during Suicide Awareness Month. I thought that was really cool. They were showing leadership. But in that conversation about mental health, it switched to the relationship between them and their parents, which you can imagine contributes greatly to mental health. In our conversations, they started talking about how they do or don't feel heard at home, how they feel like sometimes their opinion is valued and sometimes it's not. And while we can't always make everybody feel good, we do want to take some of their input and maybe help in how we grow this relationship with our kids. So I thought they were pretty amazing in what they shared, and I want to share that with you. So some of the things that they shared, well, this is what I actually see physically. I see a lot of things before I share what they share, and kids tell me things as the counselor in a middle school. If you had to guess, what's probably the most stressful age when raising kids? I guess it's different at different ages. Middle school, right? I work with the most stressful age, and people always say, oh, let's see, I love the middle schoolers. Raising them, totally different. It feels different than working with them day to day. So I get to see both. I was an elementary counselor before, and I get to see them as they're transitioning into high school. So some of what I see is, and here, is parents will say, they have no idea what's really happening at home. They're oblivious to the conflict we're having. Rarely is that true. Kids know more than you think. So I hear, they see and hear more than you realize. I hear a lot that they'll say, I don't know. Mom and dad said they're getting worse. Now they're okay. I don't know what happened, and I'm afraid to ask. And so that scares me. If they had the healthy communication, they can even talk about it. Not everything is for your kids to know. You shouldn't share things that are not developmentally appropriate or frankly not healthy for them to know about private adult matters. But if we have conflict and the kids never see a resolution, but we just go back to normal, that's not a healthy habit that we want to build in our kids. Talking about things openly is going to be a goal of what we're talking about today.
Right.
Yes.
So, you said something that's not developmentally appropriate. How do you know what's developmentally appropriate? Because it can change very quickly between 12 and 14.
Yes, we're going to talk about that as we go. I have some things about younger kids versus older kids. And sometimes what I also need is Can they handle it at their developmental age? Is it something that they can process and understand, or is it just not something they're ready for? Or is it just not something that's healthy for them to know? Do my kids need to know the ins and outs of an argument that I have with my husband? No. But if I have that argument and never talk to them later, or they never see, hey, I'm sorry, it's okay, we're gonna talk about this. They just need to see some kind of resolution and positive closure to whatever the issue might be.
We're talking about it in the general sense of the details.
Yes, general sense, not as much the details. So they also pick up on our actions more than just our words. I have kids with cell phones, and I want them to interact appropriately with the family at appropriate times and with their peers. If they sit there and I say, stop, get off your phone, but then I'm sitting there on my phone scrolling through social media nonstop, which is so easy to do at the end of the day, that's not modeling healthy behavior, and actions speak louder than words. They're gonna see what I do more than hear what I say. So social media as well, I can't sit here and say, hey, be kind, be respectful, filter yourself appropriately, and then have it all out there on social media where I'm modeling for my kids unhealthy habits. I have to be aware of what I'm putting out there, so because they're seeing it all. It's caught more than taught behaviors. So kids also regularly tell me, Ms. Brown, I like coming in here because you listen to me. Nobody listens to me. And that breaks my heart. I don't think any of us can want to convey that we're not listening to our kids, but sometimes that's how they feel. So I want to give you some tips from the students and from myself on how to help your kids feel like you care about them and you're ready to listen. So things that they say make them feel like their parents don't care. They say things like, you have it easy, you're just a kid, you'll know when you're older. I had it harder, you should be more grateful because I'm the adult and I know better. Sometimes we have these conversations where we do think our kids have it so easy. I would venture to say they have it harder than we ever did because they're doing the same things with school with so much more exposure into the world without guidance sometimes. They see everything, even if we try to protect them from it. They see and hear it from their friends, probably more than we ever did with social media and online internet things. Sometimes I feel like they minimize my thoughts and experience, like, you don't know, you'll be fine, you'll get past this, which we know to be true, but it's how we say it. They cut me off and don't hear what I have to say. They're too busy to spend time with me, and they're just on their phones all the time. Students notice these things. Now, I also had some really great examples of people who said, my parents really do listen to me. We have good communication. I feel like my parents love me and care about me when they listen to me. They said, I like when they share honest and real stories to know that they made mistakes too. This could go into developmental appropriate stuff. You don't have to share every detail of the bad thing that you did, because that could absolutely give ideas. We don't want to do that. But to know that you had hard experiences and you got through it and know that it's not always easy to make these decisions at their age, that's huge. They want to hear that, and they want to hear ideas for how to solve things. Not just, oh, back when I was younger, I had it harder. Explain things to them. They take time to listen to why the problem happened and not just yell about it. We all get busy, and sometimes it's like, well, you shouldn't have done that. Move on. We want to hear why, because their brains don't always go there. Their brains don't always go to the next step of why. They take the time to help me find a solution if I can't myself. An example of that was a student said, instead of just yelling at me about my grades, they're going to sit down next to me and help me find a resource that might help me with that math problem, or find where it is on Schoology that my teacher posted this to help me with it. Not just, you should do better. They need sometimes that support. Even if we think they know, it feels good to know, I'm disappointed in what you did, but let me help you find a solution for next time. Try to get to know what I like and think. They tell me that that I can come to them about anything and they mean it. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, how we can mean it. They take time to have fun together regularly. They actually stop what they're doing to listen to me. That one was hard for me. because I have 4 kids, 3 at home, and I was reflecting, how many times are we rushing to the next appointment, or rushing to the volleyball game, or basketball, or whatever it might be, and I'm like, hold on, I'll talk to you later, I gotta get to this thing, I gotta do this next thing, I gotta prep dinner, I gotta do this. Sometimes just taking the time to stop and look at them can go a long way. So communication looks different at different ages, which is what we were talking about before, developmentally appropriate. Younger kids, obviously, they need us in a constant way. Physically, tangibly, they need our attention and time. I have a 2.5-year-old at home. I can't say go off, do things on your own. We have to be actively engaged. Communication can come in their behavior. They're not going to say, I'm upset at something that happened today. They might just throw a fit, get upset and cry. I hear about elementary students who go home and fall apart. That could be a way of saying I'm anxious about something, or I'm upset about something somebody said to me, but they're not really good at explaining it. Our job is to kind of be detectives and figure out why the behavior happened, not just punish the behavior. Our whole goal is to solve the problem, not just punish the child. So behavior is a huge way to communicate at this stage. Sometimes the main mode for supporting communication with little ones is play. If they're having a bad day, instead of sitting there and saying, what happened, blah, 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 which can come, but sometimes a good start is to just sit on the floor and play with them. That can really center them. That is their mode of communication. Sometimes it comes out in the play, and they actually are more aggressive or whatever. That's something that happened that day, and they might start a conversation. So they need a lot of positive, healthy touch at this stage. Hugs and snuggling is so important. Taking the time to actually have felt closeness with your child is huge. And it reinforces felt safety. That is a term that just means literally feeling safe. We know our kids are safe, we create safe environments, but felt safety is when they can feel that. So whatever that means in the moment, starting to be that detective of what their behavior needs. Do they need just a minute to cool down? Do they need that blankie that is comforting to them? Whatever it might be. And we want to give options. We're doing a little more telling than asking at this stage. Do you want to wear these shoes or these shoes? It's not an option not to wear shoes. We're going to give choices that come out good for us, but they feel like they have a say. It's a little more directive at the younger stages, but you want to spend that time with them. I love this quote. Children spell love, T-I-M-E. The time we spend with our kids is everything. They feel that. So listen earnestly to anything your children want to tell you, no matter what. If you don't listen eagerly to the little stuff when they're little, they won't tell you the big stuff when they're big, because to them, all of it has always been big stuff. This is a huge reminder. Sometimes it might seem like the silliest story from school about what this kid said and what this kid did, and whatever toy you have, or my daughter was telling me about playing in the woods by the house, and they built this little fort and all that. It might seem silly or trivial, but if we take the time to listen to it, we know that we appreciate that behavior. That's how they see it and feel it. And then they'll share the big stuff as it gets bigger. Now, for the big kids, they still need our time, even when they act annoyed by that. This is literally what I heard. The kids were saying, I know I say it's lame to go hang out with my parents, but I really like that. I really need them to stop and ask me what I want to do, and make me go to that family thing on Friday night, even if I'm whining about it. They literally tell me this. They don't want to tell you that they want this time, because that's not cool. Do kids even say cool? They don't say cool. But they do need this time. They need this time and won't always ask for it. I actually noticed that in my own family when my kids are a little more on edge and I feel like we're, on them all the time. And why are you doing that? Why are you talking that way? I have to back up and say, oh my gosh, it's been a while since we just had time. Hey, come in, let's watch a movie together. Let's snuggle on the couch. Let's, come help me cook dinner, or come help me do this thing. I find it helps them calm in a way that if I just, we get in these arguments all the time, it's not going to happen. We want to be intentional about time together. It's not going to happen naturally if we don't plan it. That's the life we all need. It's just not going to happen. Family dinners are huge. Do a lot of you guys do family dinners in here? I think it's so important to take the time to sit and eat together, and you never know what they're gonna say at the dinner table. That's where you're gonna hear some crazy stuff from their day if you give them a chance. We wanna do fun things. They talked about that, the kids told me that. It's not just the errands, although that's not a bad thing. I try to do some one-on-one times with my kids, and like, I gotta go to Sam's. It's gotta happen. Why don't I work that in with one child, give them that one-on-one attention? What are some other fun things that you guys have done to help, let your child know you want to spend time with them? Any fun ideas of activities that you've done together? Bowling, that's a good one.
We like to go hiking.
Yes, somebody said that hiking and like walks, even family walks in the neighborhood can cause that, those conversations to happen. That's great. Creating opportunities for them to talk through those activities, board games, bowling, even just sitting there watching a show together. I caught myself watching a show with my daughter that she loves that we watched together. And she starts talking about something else, and I was almost like, the show's on. But I'm like, no, listen, what's going on? This is way more important than what's happening on a silly show. Sitting down for a common activity, driving places. Anybody notice that when you're driving and there's not the direct eye contact, your teen is more ready to talk? I find that I get all kinds of things in the car. I tell my husband all the time, because I drive with the kids most of all, like, how come I get the hard questions? Because I'm driving them everywhere. That's where it happens. Allowing for those one-to-one times, like I mentioned. The most important thing is, when it's tempting to get mad at them for the mistakes they made, remember, their brain doesn't go to the next step yet at this stage. They're not filtering and thinking ahead to the future about how this choice causes this reaction and that. It's our job to help them think through that. They find their friends to be the most important thing to them. Sometimes I hear people say, well, if that person's treating me that way, you aren't allowed to hang out with them. How does that go, do you think, during the day? As somebody who sees the aftermath of that, not usually well. They either rebel and want to hang out with them more, or they burn a bridge and it creates all kinds of drama because my mom said I can't hang out with you. The better option might be to use that communication and help them figure out why this is a problem for them and what do they think would help the situation. Coaching them to create boundaries could be an opportunity for communication. They still need hugs and touch too. I have a 14-year-old boy who does not walk up to me all the time and say, Mom, I want to snuggle. But they still need those opportunities for hugs and touch, just like the little ones. It's part of their development. Remembering perspective is everything. They only see theirs. They literally only see theirs. Now it's really cool, they're really amazing because they are starting to think through other people's perspectives, and some kids are better at this than others. Our job is to help them see, what do you think somebody else thought about that? It's more about asking at this stage, helping them come to the solution themselves. You can lead it, you're sharing ideas, but we don't want to just be telling. So that's the difference from the little ones. We're telling them more than just asking. The big ones, we're transitioning that role because, as some of you guys know, you have older ones that move on. They need to be able to solve these problems on their own someday. When they're off at college, when they're off in their lives, we want to be able to back up and let them know they know the questions to ask to think through these things, but we're modeling that through our communication in its stages. My dad works at Woodruff, and he describes it with parents kind of like a kite. When they're little, it's down here. We want to catch the wind. We're freeing it out slowly and slowly as they get older. And at some point, our hope is they're far enough away, and we're able to really let it go and they fly. That's the hope. It doesn't crash down to the ground. We want to be gradually releasing that all throughout. And we do that with modeling healthy communication. I saw this online actually. I try to only follow positive things, but Parenting Teens and Tweens posted, take the time to listen to your teenager, no matter how emotional or ridiculous their statements might sound to you. When someone doesn't feel valued or heard, their desire to participate in a relationship disappears. I can't just shut down my child when they're having a meltdown or a bad day, because that makes them feel like I don't want that relationship with them. Even if it seems crazy to you, it is so big to them right then. And our job is to help them calm and then talk through it reasonably. Conflict happens. It's not all beautiful, and they're listening to us and agreeing with our ideas, obviously. You're smirking because you know it's not always beautiful. There will be times we don't agree, they don't like us, and we all get mad. I said, I'm a parent too. This is not always beautiful. But if we build that foundation on how to recover and be respectful to each other, or a system of, we're really mad right now, I can't talk to you, we'll come back and talk about this. But come back and talk about this is everything. We have to follow through. It's really easy to just move on and it's over. But back to that whole idea, kids need to see a resolution. They need to see healthy ways to resolve conflict. And home is a great way to model that. We have conflict with the people we love the most, and we want to show that that's healthy and okay when we do it in the right ways. So kids have expressed they actually appreciate you checking up on them. Sometimes that's what causes the conflict, is you're following behind them, looking at their phone, looking at their Schoology, having these hard discussions about grades or friends. And as annoyed as they might feel, I think they appreciate the accountability. They appreciate that they're not just left out in the wind to deal with these hard things that come at them. And I think if you notice, and we notice in the school, if you pay attention to those things and have those conversations and they feel like you're engaged with this process, we can avoid a whole lot of the drama that we deal with at school and the bigger problems that come. That's really huge that they know that you're checking in on them. And keeping it more of a discussion, not just nagging and telling them what to do. Keeping it as a discussion. Our goal, and this is going to be hard, is to build an independent adult who can think for themselves. That means they might disagree with maybe what you are thinking and feeling. Having those conversations and allowing them to disagree, respectfully of course, is everything, because we want them to think independently. So, back to some of the things, having the difficult conversations. We can't just have the frilly, friendship, comfortable things. We want to have the difficult conversations with our kids so they know they can come to us. So if we want them to come to us for anything, we have to be comfortable with talking about everything. I've talked to many a parent who tell me that they brought up this thing about sex or drugs or something, and I was like, oh, we're not talking about that. What message does that send to the kid? We can't talk about that. I shouldn't talk about that with you. And I don't know about you guys, but I want my kids to talk about those things with me most of all, more than anybody else, because they're talking to their friends, they're talking to other people. I'd rather them come to me with that shocking thing and cover my shock and just say, wow, what do you think about that? And let them share a little, and I can share what I think about that. It's a great time to have these values conversations. We want to resist the urge to shut it down. That's like the first reaction, right? Half the time, you're too young for this. We're not talking about this. You hear that a lot. You want the kids to have these conversations, and it's a really great sign that they're coming to you to begin with this conversation. So, age appropriate, we talked about this. It's knowing when they're ready to have these talks and letting them know, I'm hearing your perspective, but I'm sharing mine. There's a lot of opportunities in the news. My recommendation is filter some of that for any kid, any age, including adults. We need to filter some of the negativity in the world. But they're going to hear about hard things. I can't shelter my kids from crazy things happening in the news. I'd rather talk to them about it in a healthy way so that we know what's happening and they know they can come to talk to me about these hard things. Our world is a hard place right now, and we want to raise them to think about it critically. That's kind of what I put down here. We're trying to create independent thinkers who are capable of engaging in critical thinking. We have a lot of people in our world today who just believe things at face value and believe what somebody else tells them to believe or whatever this might be. Regardless of what side you're on, what you believe personally, you want to think critically about the world, and we want our kids to think critically about the world and examine, why do I believe what I believe? Not just because mom and dad said to believe it. They have to have their own beliefs as they're in these older stages growing into that. And we can have that through these open communication opportunities. And I'll go back to, these are the values conversations that drive who they are someday. They might totally deviate from the religion or the values that you are thinking. But if we go back to critically thinking on being a good person and understanding why you believe what you believe, I think they come back to some of those things that we've raised them to think about or talk about. I feel like it came a little crazy over here. I really like to describe it. There are parenting styles that are really helpful for building communication, and there are parenting styles that are not great. We see this a lot, and I'll go over here so you can see it. Authoritative is our goal. We want to be sensitive and responsive, have demands on them, but we're not the stern and punitive, and we don't want to be parents who don't enforce limits. It's about having a balance of both. Discipline plus relationship. Knowing that I have boundaries for you and high standards for you. I'm not going to let you off the hook. That does not make a child feel loved. It makes them feel like they're not capable. But I'm following up with, I'm sensitive and responsive to your needs. So looking back through this, you can see I'm still disciplining, but it's in a safe way. I'm not yelling over you or letting you run all over me. Now, the tough stuff happens. We have to discipline and correct them. And there's a time and place I don't need your input coming back to me when I'm disciplining you, and there's a consequence. We deal with this in the middle school sometimes, that sometimes kids feel like their voice is so important that it overrides authority. And we don't want to balance that or keep that in their mindset, because that doesn't build a respectful human being of anybody, peers or adults. So we have to show that there is discipline and there's a time and a place to then talk about it. They may say they don't like boundaries, but boundaries show they're safe. There's research to show with, attachment and healthy building of relationships that parents who give no boundaries don't have healthy attachment with their children. Because we think like they like us more, we're the fun parents. But what it really sends the message to these kids is, I can't trust my parents to keep me safe. I can't trust my parents to show me where the line is, so I'm figuring it out on my own. That's not supportive. We want to have that balance. And they need that, and they feel safe when they get that. We want to provide opportunities for them to share their perspective when it's appropriate. I had a discussion with one of my children the other day, and they had stepped out of bounds on what I had said was acceptable, what we had decided was acceptable, and they were really mad at me that I was enforcing a consequence. And they sat down and said, well, I want to tell you what I think about this. And my response was, not now. I'll be happy to hear you later when we're both calm, but this is how it is. Sometimes there has to be that boundary, and we didn't go back and talk about it, but by the time we went back and talked about it, my child had a chance to really think through using the skills that we talk about. Why did mom do that? Was she just trying to be mean, or was that the rule I knew and I broke it? They were able, actually, I got an email in the middle of the day, we want emails that said, I'm sorry mom, I was really disrespectful. Which feels good because you know your child is thinking about it on their own. You're not forcing the apology. It is naturally reflected. Now, we don't always get it right. In that case, my child had to apologize to me, which is great. Sometimes I have to apologize to my child. If I'm upset, if I fly off the handle and jump too quickly to that consequence without even hearing anything or thinking through it, I also have the ability to go back and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have approached that way with you. I should have controlled myself better. I shouldn't have said that. Will you forgive me? We don't always apologize, and sometimes we really should. We need to model, we make mistakes too. Kids don't want perfect parents. They just want us to be present and real. So, we're all in this together. Reach out if you need help. No child is like any other, but all of these things can help any child feel loved and respected and heard, which is what we want as they develop into independent adults who can love and respect and hear others. That's how they're learning it from us. So we have to give the boundaries and the safety that the boundaries provide. We want to show them healthy communication and that they're valued, but sometimes we have to get help. We went back to how did our parents raise us? Sometimes old habits die hard. If you're not okay, you can't be the best parent you can be. Getting mental health support for yourself sometimes is the biggest modeling of healthy behavior that you can do. And it can change some of these patterns that might be hard to break generationally. So don't be afraid to ask for help yourself, whether it be from a school counselor at school to work with your child and help you in working with your child, or beyond that, private counseling for yourself. If you need resources, please reach out. We're willing to give those to you. Kids don't need perfect parents, they just need present parents who care and create safety and security. We don't have to be perfect, we don't have to get it right all the time. Sometimes they grow more and learn more when we don't get it right, and we recover and show them how we can do that too. So I hope these give you some really good ideas to share with your kids, and remember, our goal isn't to create little robots of ourselves. As much as that would be fun, that they think like us and do what we do, we want them to be healthy, adjusted adults who can think for themselves. So, thank you. Any questions?